Ah yes, wintertime, the most dreaded time of the year if you're a motorcycle rider. There's pretty much nothing to do but do some maintenance on your bike, clean it, and of course drool over it while it's sitting in your garage, waiting for better days obviously. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that 2024 was my first season of riding a motorcycle, and I really took advantage of the year doing almost 18,000 kilometers. Right now filming this is January 3rd, 2025, and while we are still relatively far away from riding, I'm already preparing for the new riding season. I inspected the bike, thoroughly cleaned all the dirt and grease which accumulated over the year, and of course I've been learning about proper maintenance over the winter. This also means that I have been reflecting a bit on the past year, on all the adventures my bike and I have been through and what I could have done better as a beginner rider in his first season, and decided to make a video for you guys on some of the mistakes that I made this year. So hopefully you can avoid them if you're on the same journey of, let's say, improvement as a motorcycle rider, or if you're just starting out as a new rider and contemplating whether or not to get your license and buy that first bike. So let's get right into it, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this video. Mistake number 1, driving too fast. Now I'm sure this is an obvious one, and I think most riders at some point make this mistake because riding a motorcycle fast is a part of the appeal at the end of the day, whether we like it or not. When you have a power to weight ratio of modern supercars, even on entry level or let's say middleweight bikes like this CB650R Honda, you are going to develop speed pretty fast, and it's just a matter of time before you find yourself doing double the speed limit simply because it's so effortless. While it sure seemed fun to drive fast, it is very easy to lose track of what is actually going on the road due to excessive speed. Other traffic participants most likely do not expect a bike doing 120 in a 50 when they are just pulling out of their driveway. I remember sometimes doing unnecessary fast accelerations in populated areas with very low speed limits, and I put myself and others in danger. Now, I never really got into any real sketchy situations where I couldn't have it under control or decrease my speed fast enough. But honestly, that was just pure luck, and I'm grateful to be able to say that I went through the whole season without any accidents. One moment really stuck with me. I was on a straight stretch of road, wide open throttle, feeling the rush of adrenaline as I blew past a car waiting to turn onto the road. The driver didn't pull out, thank God, but I could see him shaking his head when I drove past. That could have gone very differently if they misjudged my speed or if I hadn't been paying attention for even a second longer. Situations like this really make you understand why roads have speed limits, and I know this sounds counterintuitive for the fun of motorcycle riding, but when it comes to riding fast, I really learned that it's about knowing when and where to do it, and even on a perfect road, a perfect day, things can still surprise you, and going very fast you won't have sufficient time to react to whatever is coming your way. It truly is all about having your ego and urge to go fast under control, and just like being grateful you are able to enjoy riding a bike, even if it means doing the speed limit from time to time. And remember, coming home healthy in one piece to your loved ones should always be top priority. Mistake number 2, not using my brakes enough at the time and not covering my brake lever. Having never ridden a motorcycle before, I was quite surprised to see how much stronger the engine braking is on a motorcycle when compared to a car. Even the short decrease in the throttle twist can cause substantial amounts of speed loss, and this really became almost the only way for me to decrease my speed. I remember using my brakes only when approaching a complete stop, and as a beginner, most of the time I wasn't even going to speeds where engine braking only wouldn't be enough. Now, while this might not seem like that big of a deal, I totally neglected the fact that I was literally training myself to ride without using brakes and learning how to properly modulate the brake lever depending on what I want from the bike. Then there is also the importance of preloading your front suspension before entering a corner using your brakes. Without using the brakes, I was really missing out on this and just started to incorporate it into my riding towards the end of the season. This technique really just allows the bike's weight to shift forward smoothly and increases the grip going into the corner. My habit also caused me not to cover my brake lever enough at the times with my finger, which could result in me not being able to brake fast enough in case of an emergency. Basically, I wasn't using my muscle memory and the confidence needed to use my brakes effectively in an emergency situation. This is an area where I really need to work on in the future to increase my safety as a rider. Mistake number 3. Driving like I'm in a car. Now, what do I mean by that? What I'm trying to say is that I wasn't defensive enough while on a motorcycle. Obviously, the rules of the game change when you ride a motorcycle compared to a car. You are completely exposed to the surroundings, have no seatbelts, no airbags, pretty much nothing to really protect you. This means that you have to be even more vigilant and cautious on the road. Building my spatial awareness is something I really had to work on a lot and constantly be aware of what is going on around me. Constantly checking my mirrors and blind spots wasn't something I was doing from the beginning and could have cost me dearly, but luckily I learned to incorporate it into my riding early enough and is now something I constantly do to make sure I don't get myself into any unwanted situations on the road. Once I started to ride daily, it became very clear to me that I am much less visible on the road compared to a car and that I simply just have to anticipate the worst and sometimes even drive like I'm invisible to other drivers. That way I made sure that other people noticed me early enough. Over time I started to observe not just the traffic but also the people inside the cars. Where are they looking, predicting and anticipating their next move? Are they talking or texting on the phone? Are they somehow distracted? Are they paying attention? How can I make myself visible to them? All of these things now go through my head while I'm driving in traffic, and it is a factor that can really make a difference in safety. A very good thing that also happened is that because of my experiences as a motorcycle rider, I also became a much better and safer car driver. At the beginning, this wasn't that obvious to me, and I caught myself really not paying that much attention to the traffic around me, but I quickly adapted to stay safer. Mistake number 4. Started riding too early in the season. As a beginner, and especially with a brand new bike in the garage, I just wanted to start riding as soon as possible. Around mid-April of 2024, we even got a pretty heavy snowfall, which only delayed the start of my new adventure, but after the snow melted away, I decided it was go time. However, I did not fully take into account that the conditions on the roads, especially some less traveled back roads, were still pretty bad. There was lots of gravel and dirt on the roads, which made the start of my riding a bit less enjoyable, and I had to really focus on avoiding gravel in the corners and taking the safer lines. It wasn't overwhelmingly problematic, I would say, but combined with also pretty low temperatures of 15 degrees Celsius and lower grip levels, it could cause a beginner some trouble navigating a bike in these conditions. Luckily, I was able to handle myself pretty well, and looking back, starting in those, let's say, worse conditions made me an overall better rider. But from a purely objective standpoint, it made no sense to start so early, and waiting another couple of weeks would make for a much safer start of my motorcycle journey. Mistake number 5. Saving money on gear. Saving money on gear is one thing that really put me at risk as a beginner rider. I remember for the first month of riding, all I had was a helmet, leather jacket and a pair of leather gloves. I made sure these were all high quality products, but completely neglected the lower part of my body and rode in normal jeans and sneakers. Even the most harmless accident at slow speeds would probably leave me with a severe road rash or a bad foot injury. I kept telling myself that I'm a beginner and don't even ride that fast, so there is no need for some more equipment. This was a huge mistake, because as a beginner I was even more vulnerable to have an accident simply due to lack of experience. So basically I was saving money on gear at a time when I needed it the most. Don't get me wrong, we need good gear at all times, but especially when we first start riding. I ended up doing thousands of kilometers without proper protection, which looking back was a terrible idea. Eventually, after 2 months of riding like this, I invested in proper riding pants and riding boots. The difference is substantial. The gear does not only protect you better in the event of a crash, but you also feel much less exposed to the environment, which is very confidence inspiring, and riding just feels so much more comfortable because of it. One thing I just like to mention is that I would definitely invest in some good base layer clothing from the beginning, as I noticed that it makes a huge difference at keeping my body warm and protected from wind. Ever since I bought my base layer clothes, I use them on every single ride, and it remains one of the best gear purchases I made. So that's it for this video, guys. There are some other things I could mention, but I didn't want to make this video too long, since I know most of us have attention spans shorter than our ability to go to speed limit. I will save those for another video. This one is also a bit different from my other videos, so please feel free to let me know what you think about this, and thank you for watching. I really hope you learned something useful or just enjoyed the video, and hope to see you soon in another one. Take care.